I'm going to start with the first thinker that's mentioned in paper 1, that is Emile Durkheim. Okay. You know the way I approach the thinkers. I first prefer to go for the backgrounder of the thinkers. After the backgrounder, because we all know how the backgrounder of the thinkers, they have tremendous impact or influence on the works and studies of the thinkers. I'm repeating myself here. See, in sociology, we talk about value neutrality, right? Yes, Max Weber was the person who talked about value neutrality for the first time, sorry. We know that to achieve objectivity, we need to be value neutral. But let us be honest to ourselves. Do we ever be completely value neutral? We may identify a few values which are impacting us or our studies, and we may avoid those values. We may try to avoid those values. We may use certain mechanisms to be value neutral and through value neutrality to achieve objectivity. But do we actually be value neutral? No, we don't. We don't even know how the values back within our mind, they keep on playing. And here, when I said mind, I'm using actually George Herbert Mead, self and mind, right? So the value system, if I may consider the value as the operating system of the mind, so you can easily understand those values only help the mind to process the information passed on by the self. Now, this is not the discussion of Emile Durkheim though, but I'm just sharing the idea here, sharing a general idea with all of us. So from here only you can understand that every thinker, every individual person, they get affected by the values in one way or the another. Becoming completely value neutral or truly value neutral is next to impossible. Clear? And this is the reason why we do find the impact of the background, the impact of from where these thinkers, these people, the human beings, they came from on their works and on their studies. That's why with respect to every thinker, I would always suggest you that look at the background of the thinker. If you have time, look at the background of the thinker. That will tell you a lot about the thinkers, about the particular individual. Okay. Now, in the class, what I did this for the 9 thinkers, that is the 6 thinkers of paper 1 and the 3 thinkers of paper 2. Obviously, in the class, I didn't talk about the backgrounder. By class, I mean the offline class, the regular classes which were conducted, right? I never talked about the backgrounder of the people like Iravati Karve, Kathleen Goff. Kathleen Goff was still, I think I mentioned that she was a communist or a Marxist actually, right? She was from this radical school of thought. She and A.R. Desai. But with most of the thinkers, we hardly ever discuss their background other than their methodological discourse. Say Kingsley Davis and Wilbert E. Moore, we know that they were functionalists. Melvin M. Tumin was a functionalist. W.H.R. Rivers was a functionalist. You know these names, right? At the same point of time, we talked about Ralph Dahrendorf. You know that he was a Marxist, a radical thinker. He was the one who criticized Marxist orientation or Marxist school of thought in stratification. We have studied Ralph Dahrendorf there, right? I know, you know why I'm doing this? So that these informations keep on hitting your head. Okay. Again, you may start recalling these things back. That's the reason why I'm hitting you with all these things. It's just a gist of some of the areas, some of the tidbits, so that you start getting sensitized, your mind start getting sensitized. That's why I'm doing this. Chalo. Let's come back. So we are going to study Emile Durkheim right now, and we are going to look at 5 aspects. Aspect number 1, we are going to look at his backgrounder, and then we are going to look at his 4 major works. These 4 major works are: number 1, Division of Labor, which was published as a book in 1893. Rules of Sociological Method, which was published in 1895, The Suicide, which was published in the year 1897, and then The Elementary Forms of Religious Life, which was published in 1912, right? These are the 4 works of Emile Durkheim, which we are going to study here in the class right now. Now, though Rules of Sociological Method was the second major work of Emile Durkheim, we are going to study it first. By first, I mean after backgrounder of Emile Durkheim, we are going to take up Rules of Sociological Method. Why? Because that gives us the methodological discourse of Emile Durkheim. And using this methodological discourse, it becomes easier to understand the other 3 works of Emile Durkheim. So though Division of Labor as a book was published in 1893, in our discussion, we're going to take it up as the second work. Okay, fine. Let's go forward. As we know, Durkheim was born in 1858 in France. The family was extremely orthodox Jewish family. The grandfather, the father, they all were the rabbi or rabbi, whatever you may pronounce. Rabbi, I think, is the pronunciation. At least I do that, and that's the pronunciation I've heard, rabbi. Okay, so both the grandfather and his father. The grandfather means obviously Emile Durkheim's grandfather. So the grandfather of Emile Durkheim and the father of Emile Durkheim, they both were Jewish rabbi. Rabbi, priest, Jewish priests. You can easily understand what kind of an orthodox background this person is coming from. Fine. Now see. Even Emile Durkheim, he was also sent to be a Jewish rabbi at an early age, right? They also sent him, you also go, you also be a Jewish rabbi. But what happened? Durkheim, at the age of 17, he revolted. He just went against this orthodoxy. He said, I'm not going to be a rabbi. He left the school, came back. Yeah, there is a proper training mechanism and all these things. If any one of you have ever been to Banaras or say Navadvip in West Bengal, or even there is one particular village in Karnataka. I'm losing the name of the village. These are the places in southern India, Tanjore, then this village in Karnataka. These are the places where training schools are there for the Hindu priests. Say Deoband. Deoband is a school for teaching the Muslim ulema, right? So this way, everywhere there are schools for the priests, right? And Durkheim was also sent to a school to be trained as a priest. But at the age of 17, he decided, enough, I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be a rabbi. He came back. Finally, they had to admit him with philosophy, with the subject of philosophy. So that's a subject which he academically studied. But do remember, before becoming a rebel, he was conforming to that orthodoxy of his family. Okay, fine. Now, what happens when we look at Durkheim's works? Let me be very honest, his PhD, his seminal work or his PhD thesis was on division of labor. But as I told you, I'm not going to take it up right now. Rather, I'm going to look at his second major work, Rules of Sociological Method. Now, here it is very significant to say that sociology was not a subject during those days. Though Auguste Comte, or Auguste, some people pronounce it as Auguste Comte, right? Maybe that's a French pronunciation, I do not know, right? We use the English tradition, and in English tradition it becomes Comte, C-O-M-T-E, right? So Auguste Comte may have had established sociology as a subject in 1838, right? He wrote 4 volumes of a series of books called The Course in Positive Philosophy. In the second volume of that book, which was published in 1838, he would introduce a subject, sociology, and subsequently he would, in the other 2 volumes, he would deliberate on that, right? He would try to lay down things for sociology. But I think Auguste Comte had been the biggest reason why no one took sociology very seriously. Why? Because Auguste Comte, subsequently, he went to become a cult leader. In India, we have the Babas and all these people. So Auguste Comte could gradually become someone like that. So the academia, they never took Auguste Comte seriously, nor they ever took this subject that was introduced by Auguste Comte seriously. Although one of his friends, Herbert Spencer, took it seriously, and we know how social Darwinism it started rising from Herbert Spencer, right? We have talked about that in details. The idea of survival of the fittest, the natural selection, the process of natural selection. These are actually created to Herbert Spencer than Charles Darwin, right? Charles Darwin talks about the evolution, but these aspects of natural selection and survival of the fittest, they are more created to Herbert Spencer than to Charles Darwin. Anyway, so with Herbert Spencer starts social Darwinism, and he would carry on with the idea of Auguste Comte. But still, in spite of these two great academic minds trying to promote the concept or the new subject of sociology, it was not getting much popularity. And if you ask me personally, I feel the image of Auguste Comte was the biggest reason why people they refused, the academia they refused to take this subject seriously. Okay, fine. Now, what happens? Anyway, now what happens while studying philosophy in Paris? Emile Durkheim got exposed to the ideas of Auguste Comte. Auguste Comte was a French scholar. Naturally, the works were there, right? Yep, I do admit Emile Durkheim was born in 1858, 20 years later, 20 years after Auguste Comte had introduced the subject sociology. The subject of sociology was brought to the existence in 1838, and Emile Durkheim was born in 1858, 20 years later. But still the works were there, right? Say, for example, you, me, even we know about the philosophies or the thought process of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar or of Mr. M.K. Gandhi, right? But they are long dead. B.R. Ambedkar died in 1956, sorry, 1956. None of us were born at that point of time. Clear? So then how do we know about that? Because the thought, the idea, the dominant ideas, they remained in the society. Karl Marx, for that matter, died in 1883, but we still know that man. We still study his discussions or his understandings. Why? Because the ideas remained dominant, right? So that's the reason why the idea of Auguste Comte was still existing in the French society, though no one was giving much importance to it, or no one was ready to accept it at the face value. But Emile Durkheim would do. Why? Again, Emile Durkheim himself also comes from a traditional background, a typical orthodox background. And there he looked at a cult leader, so a really cult leader kind of a figure. So naturally, for him, it was okay, fine. So what? Just because he's a cult leader, so why do we have to discount the theory? This was the mindset of Emile Durkheim. And he looked into the theory very seriously. Now, typically on the footsteps of Auguste Comte and Herbert Spencer, Emile Durkheim would also be a positivist, right? A person who would believe that sociology should be established as a subject of science. This was the opinion of Emile Durkheim as well. That whatever we do, we should be using the scientific temper, the scientific mechanisms, the scientific techniques, right? That this subject is the science of the society. This was his opinion. So he was also a positivist, though he deviated a little bit. Yes, he deviated a little bit from Auguste Comte and Herbert Spencer. Auguste Comte and Herbert Spencer, they were of the opinion that sociology should be at par with the other natural sciences. There, no doubt, Emile Durkheim, he was of the opinion that no, not really. Sociology is not equivalent to that of the natural sciences. Rather, from philosophy comes two distinct streams, natural sciences and social sciences. And sociology is a subject of social science. That's where he deviated. Or else about the nature of the subject, how the subject should be studied, how things are to proceed. In every such details, he was blindly following Auguste Comte and Herbert Spencer. Good enough. Now, not only this, at the same point of time, this was also the time of functionalists. Now, we cannot call Auguste Comte or Herbert Spencer functionalists, right? They were positivists, right? Who's a functionalist? A person who believes that whatever is existing in the society or going on in the society, it must be contributing good for the society, right? The functionalists are of the belief that the society knows the best. The society knows what it wants, what it does not want, what it requires, what it does not require. So if something is existing in the society, that means that thing must be contributing positively in the society, right? It must be doing something good for the society. This was the idea of the functionalists, and this is originally a school of thought belonging to anthropology, social anthropology. Okay. Now, Emile Durkheim, he would bring this particular school of thought or this methodology from social anthropology to sociology. I hope you all are getting my ideas here clearly. Any confusion till now? I'm asking this because nearly 20 minutes or at least 15 minutes, I have been talking continuously. So I don't know whether you're getting my ideas clearly or not. Any confusion till now, guys? Anyone? Because these things we have discussed previously as well. Sure, let's go on. Now, see what happens. So this is the idea of these are the two major theoretical strands of Emile Durkheim. Using these two major theoretical strands, Emile Durkheim would write that book called Rules of Sociological Method. I told you that Emile Durkheim was a positivist. For him, it was a challenge to establish sociology as a discipline of science. And one more bigger reason why sociology as a subject was not taught in the universities, or hardly anyone was taking the subject seriously before Emile Durkheim. The reason was Auguste Comte and Herbert Spencer, both of them, they failed in providing any subject matter to sociology. Right? What should be the subject matter of sociology? That was not there. Right? They both tried to analyze things from their own point of view, but that was hardly making any sense. So this was a reality. So this was also a challenge for Emile Durkheim to give sociology its own subject matter. That what sociology is a subject, is going to be a subject, but then what is this subject going to study? What exactly is this subject going to study? If you say the subject is going to study the society, society is a very big thing. From where to start, how to proceed. That thing was never laid down by Auguste Comte. So this was also a challenge for Emile Durkheim. And there comes this book called Rules of Sociological Method. Okay. So what is Emile Durkheim doing here? He says that, see, the biggest challenge for sociology in being a subject of science is its subject matter. We need a subject matter which is going to be concrete. Right? If you say the society is consisting of individuals, so let's make individuals the subject matter of sociology. Durkheim's idea was that individuals are extremely vulnerable and variable. They're tremendously variable. In this condition, if you make the individuals the subject matter of study for sociology, you realize what's happening. You're making the subject matter variable, extremely variable, and as a result, you would never ever be able to reach to the right conclusion. Your conclusions would always keep on, the results would always keep on varying based on the variable degree of the individuals. We individuals, let's look at ourselves to understand Emile Durkheim better here. We are subject to mood swings. Not all the time we feel just the same. Right? At the same point of time, we fall ill, right? People also die. A person who's here today, we really cannot count that the person will be here tomorrow because he or she may die, right? In this, as a result of that, this variability factor among the individuals is too high. Clear? So that's the reason why Emile Durkheim says that no, individuals cannot be the subject matter, because if individuals be the subject matter, things become too much variable. The subject matter becomes too much variable, and as a result, we would never be able to reach to the conclusion. That's his opinion. So he wanted to concretize the subject matter, something which is very concrete. Say, if we go for say chemistry, right? The chemical components or the chemical aspects of the materials. That's the subject matter of chemistry. Physics, the physical being of the materials. They can be metals or otherwise, doesn't matter, metals or non-metals. That use of the word metal was not right. Material is the right word. Say it can be a plastic, say this laptop I'm using right now to talk to you, to go forward with this class. This is made up of what? Plastic and fibers, right? So obviously some wiring is also there inside and all these things are there, but still, right? Then next comes the thing that so what did we realize? That the natural sciences, physics, chemistry or otherwise, they have concrete subject matter, but sociology hardly had any concrete subject matter because our individuals are hardly concrete. So if sociology has to be a subject of science, the subject matter needs to be concrete and individuals are not concrete. Then that's where Emile Durkheim would say, forget about the individuals, let's look at the collectivity. People at large, the society at large. That's going to be the subject matter of sociology. And then he further proceeds, because naturally a query rises that you're saying that individuals are variable, so individuals should not be the subject matter of sociology, but people at large or society at large should be the subject matter of sociology because that's concrete. How is the society at large or the collectivity, the people at large, they are concrete? Because they are also made up of individuals, right? This is where Emile Durkheim starts making his inferences. He says that yes, the society is made up of individuals, but not only individuals. The society is more than the sum total of the individuals. There is something else as well. What is that? What is he talking about? That there is something more than the sum total of the individuals in the society? He says, see, the society is sui generis. The society originates on its own. The society does not need the individuals for its own survival, for its own existence, for its origin. Individuals may come and go, but the society exists. What makes this happen? If individuals are so significant, if individuals, they matter so much, then with the death of the individuals, the society should also collapse. It doesn't. The society survives. What keeps the society to survive? What makes it to live? That's where he says that no. In the society, along with the individuals, there is something else as well, a kind of current. Something which roams around us, something which keeps on influencing us, but from outside, externally. Right? He says these currents, they're not just currents, they're intangible for sure, but they are not completely abstract. You can feel them. They're like things. Right? So these currents, these external influences which influence the people from outside, right? That's the thing which gives the society its permanency. Because people may die, those currents, they are more permanent, they remain there. They give the society its permanency. That's why the society survives. And he also says that, okay, fine. Not only that, not only these currents are external and all these things, they need to be studied properly, right? He calls this but external things, right? Since they're things, he calls them social fact. He says just as natural facts are there, right? Say a rock on the road, it's a natural fact. Similarly, these social facts, are also things. They are also existing there in the society. They may not be visible to us in our naked eye. We can't see them. They might be intangible. We may not touch them, but they exist very much. We cannot ignore that. We can't ignore their existence. That's the reality. Okay. And here he says that, so that social fact should be our subject matter of study. Now, question is, what is a social fact? How to identify it? Durkheim says, okay, there would be at least 4 features, 4 characteristics, right? If you can identify a current which is influencing you, if these 4 features are there in that current, do know it's a social fact. What is it? What are these characteristics? Number 1, externality. It should be influencing you from outside. In the class, if you remember, I have used so many examples. A common one example I do use, because we are all students of UPSC here. Not me exactly, I'm no more aspirant of UPSC. My last one was in 2010. So in that sense, though, obviously I'm not an aspirant of UPSC, but you are students of sociology here. Students of UPSC here. Now, why UPSC? Why civil services? Right? Comes the question here, comes the issue here. Now, please try and understand what happens. It is the society which gave you the idea that in India, you want to be someone who, you want to hold power without getting into the politics, because in politics, not everything is always hunky-dory. I'm not saying that all the politicians are bad. No, obviously not. Majority of them are really good and they are actually having good intentions, but not everything always is hunky-dory in politics. So if you aspire to contribute properly in the nation making, or you want to do good for yourself, you want to hold power, this is one way of doing it. Civil services, right? And it's also respectful, right? The respect factor is too much here. So it is a society which gave you this idea of civil services. It came from outside, externality. At the same point of time, generality. See, so many of you, every year, 11 lakh actually is the figure. 11 lakh people, they fill up the form, right, to appear in civil services. Prelims form is filled up nearly by 11 lakh people every year. You can get this figure from UPSC's annual report, right? Right now, we have the 72nd annual report. The 73rd annual report will be published next year, right? But every year you will get the annual report, and from the annual report, you can say this. Anyway, let's come back. So 11 lakh is not a very small number. So many people are getting influenced by this idea. That means there is a general trend, generality. It is affecting people at large, right? Independent. These social facts, they don't need you or me for its survival. It survives on its own. Do you think you're the first person to get the idea to be a civil servant? No. Do you think you're going to be the last person to get this idea? No. This idea is going to be there, independent of you and me. So that's another feature, another characteristic. And lastly, constraint. It constrains people. Right now, even we do say that while you're going for civil services, while you're preparing for civil services, don't think about the alternatives too much right now. Have the alternatives prepared, but don't think too much right now. And even you, I know those among you who become sincere, they commit full-heartedly. Right? So what's happening? I'm looking at a constraining effect. And you can feel that constraining effect when you go back to your family, you talk to your family, you talk to your relatives. If they know that you're preparing for civil services, right? See the kind of pressure that starts getting created. Quite often than not, we say that before prelims, avoid your relatives, right? The reason is this, that pressure that starts mounting, that pressure is nothing but that constraining effect. So much of expectation from the relatives and others, which unnecessarily create the pressure on you, right? So this is what I'm looking at. So these are the 4 characteristics or 4 features of social fact, which were given by Emile Durkheim. And he said that if these 4 features are present there, do know it is a social fact. Okay. He also talks about the types of social facts. He says, if you're talking about social facts, they would be grossly of 2 types: normal social facts and pathological social facts. Right? What is a pathological social fact? Anything which is negative in nature. Right? Anything which has sociopathic tendency. That's pathological social fact. Say dacoity, robbery, any kind of crime, any kind of those negative social facts, right? So they say that these are the ones which are there, and these are the negative or pathological social facts. But at the same point of time, he says there are obviously pathological social facts are lesser in number, more are normal social facts. Okay. Now, what are the normal social facts? Or he says there are subtypes of the normal social facts. He says normal social facts, which are the general ones, the larger body of social facts, they can be of 3 subtypes. Number 1, morphological social facts. Social facts which shape the structure of the society. Say India. India is a democratic republic. So this idea of democratic republic that shapes Indian society. Clear? That's a morphological social fact. Clear? At the same point of time, it can be institutional social fact. Say, with the removal of Section 377 of IPC, today homosexuality is not a criminal offense anymore. But previously it was, right? Till it was there, it was an institutional social fact. Today it has been removed from there, right? So those kind of laws which are there. Clear? Then again, it can be non-institutional social fact, which are very, very fragile. It gets created, and then after a point of time, it may fade out as well. Say, for example, at times the various fads they come up now. The different lingos we also get habituated with. Say the words FOMO or this kind of words which swag, right? Do you really think that this word swag was ever there in the English dictionary? No, it was not. It's still not there. It's still naturally it's being introduced, but as such, this word is very new. It has a very new origin, right? So this is what a non-institutional social fact. These kind of lingos or something which are happening very randomly, right? But influencing people from outside. So these are non-institutional social facts. They may very easily die as well, right? So these are the types of social facts, types and subtypes of social facts. Normal social facts, pathological social facts. Normal social facts are again divided into 3 subtypes: morphological, institutional, and non-institutional. Good. But the question is how to study social facts, right? Because you can understand what was the major challenge for Emile Durkheim was how to study the subject matter, to establish that, to establish sociology as a subject. That was the biggest challenge. So he writes eloquently and he writes immensely on the issue of how to study social facts. A few points there, if I may discuss. He says that to study social fact, the first and foremost thing you need to do is observation. Observe it very closely, right? And while observing, what we should do, he says that, see, you're saying, or we are saying that let's go and observe the social facts. You can't just go and observe the social facts like that. For that, you need to do certain things. What do you need to do? He says, number one, eradicate all the preconceived notions. All the ideas which you conceived previously and is there in your mind, remove them. Any preconceived idea, anything of that sort, remove it. Just remove it. At the same point of time, social facts should be treated as things. They are things. They are very much real. You need to convince yourself that they are there. They're existing there. You have to find it out. Right? And they are like concrete things. And then comes the issue of this distinguished characters, external distinguished characters, every social fact they have. Yeah. And then finally, once the observation is done, you need to test the social fact. Testing should also be done. Without testing the social fact, your study never becomes complete. So that's how we need to study social facts. How to test the social facts? Say in the class, what I did, I took you as a sample size and I was talking about influence of social fact on your lives. Clear? So that testing, that has to be there continuously. Okay. So these are the mechanisms or methods of how to study social facts. This is his discussion of rules of sociological method, which lays down the ground rule for us. Now, testing part is not only discussed by us that way in the offline classes. Testing is also done by Emile Durkheim. What we are going to do now we are going to take up the 3 works of Emile Durkheim, the other 3 major works of Emile Durkheim. That is division of labor, rules of this elementary forms of social, the suicide, and then the elementary forms of religious life. Right? I was missing. I was trying to intending to say the suicide or lay suicide, and I was saying elementary forms of religious life. That was a fumble that I did. Okay. Anyway, let's carry on here. So when we do that and we try to find out social facts there as well, that's also a kind of testing. Often than not, you will see UPSC asking questions that what are the social facts that he talks about in this particular study or in that particular study. UPSC is asking you to do the testing. Okay, that's how those questions are asked.